What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to The Art Hack. I am your host, The Art Hack, and today we're going to be continuing our work on the sculpture of Jesus I've been working on. Probably going to be here for probably about 2 hours, and I've got some places I got to be. Right now, it's looking like it's going to rain outside, and it seems like a good enough day to sit back and just do some artwork. I went back and watched one of the last streams, and the the music was obnoxious. And I think I figured out what's going on. My levels were a little too high, so I apologize for that if you were here last time. So, here's where we left off last time. And remember, if you were here, I said don't be too precious with things. If you run into something and you're like, you know what, I'm not going to do it that way. I think I found a different way to go about it. Then feel free to do that. After all, it is your artwork. Like something that I'm working with this. This is for my own personal use, but I do want to make good time. I want to make good choices with the time that I have, right? So, we are going to revisit this, and hopefully get a little bit further this time around than we did the last time, and then maybe make some tweaks to the beard. And I feel it's important to focus heavily on this area because uh, you want to. One of the places that people focus on is the face, right? And so we want to make sure we pay some attention to that. And obviously, it's an art piece. I'm not going for super hyper realism, but I do want to do right by it for my own sake, right? And then obviously these the arms and everything, the anatomy, it's all got to be dialed in. But these hands are going to have to be posed. We're going to have to build some props. We're going to have to build a nail to be able to go there. I don't know that we're going to get to all that this session, but we will get there. I know that I need to pose these legs a little bit. Not going to do that right now, though. All right, so before I get going on that, I do want to point your attention towards some resources that I found very helpful. If you hear some jingling in the background, that's one of the three dogs in the family. So there's a tutorial that's really helpful by 3D Mutiny. It's pretty good, and this one from Anna Carolina. She is I think she teaches digital sculpture and game art and things like that. So a wealth of knowledge here, and she breaks things down, and she's just basically using the curve brush or the curve tubes, some move brush, and just some simple sculpting, right? And that's really what I'm going to break this back down to. There's another tutorial out there that he just goes to town, like he sculpts it all in, and I'm fascinated by that, but that's not where I'm at, so I ain't even going to try and go down that road. And that's the thing, is like, you do you. The way I treat this is I try and treat it as if it's clay. Like if I were building this in the real world, then how would I go about it? You know? So let's get cracking. Hopefully the music isn't overwhelming. Says it's royalty free music, so I'm not really concerned about. I don't want to violate anyone's copyright, obviously, but so let's see. Here we go. All right, so what we need to do is we need to take a step back here, and I'm not going to completely get rid of these, but I do need to organize this a little bit. So I'm going to say I want to split hidden. So basically all I'm trying to do is get back to where we were before we started making all these curves here. Split hidden, and then I'm gonna turn those hairs off. Okay. All right. And let's check and see whether or not Dynamesh is still on. Of course it's not. That's okay. All right. So we're gonna spend a little time shaping these a little bit. Solo this out real quick just to see what's going on here. There was something else that I saw here. Let me just double check. Yeah, I don't know how that. Oh, that's why. We go geometry, modify topology, delete hidden, and turn off solo. All right. So at this stage, we're just making big movements. We're using the move brush, big movements. And it's okay if it gets smushed into the head a little bit. What tends to happen is as you're sculpting, it builds up material off of the surface, and obviously, it's just not how hair works. So it'll be this balance between building up, pushing back, and all that. So what we're trying to do is just kind of establish a flow. So we're gonna go clay build up. I'm gonna bring my stroke palette over. If my stylus will grab this, there we go. And we're gonna change our lazy step to 0.006. And the reason I do that is because it gives a pretty good result. I'm going to bring up the lazy radius a little bit and bring my intensity down to something like 5. There we go. So we're just going to give ourselves hints of where this hair is going to flow. Just hints. That's it. Nothing crazy. All right. And it could be helpful to turn on transparency, because when you're sculpting, sometimes it'll recognize that there is another piece of geometry nearby, and that can affect some things. All right. Just make some quick work of it. Let me take a step back. So what we have here is we've got some geometry that's getting pulled through. We don't want to have that happen. Don't know how far back I'm going to have to go. There we go. So if you experience that, you can go over to brush, go down to auto masking and turn on back face masking. And what it will do is prevent, when you have thin surfaces like this, it'll prevent the brush from pulling material from this side over to this side or vice versa. But it does affect different brushes differently. Like the move brush will act funny if you have it turned on. So just be mindful of that if you're going to use it. I know it's a lot of stuff to remember. I forget it all the time. So really, at the end of the day, it's, are you having fun? And are you enjoying what you're doing? The thing I like about this stuff, especially, and I feel extremely blessed to be able to do this for work. I'm not doing this for work. This is just for fun, but it gives me a problem to solve. And it's not going to be the end of the world if I don't solve it immediately. Gives me unique problems to solve, especially whenever I've got clients wanting unique and interesting things. Like next week, I've got to figure out a cartoony Sasquatch for a client somewhere in Illinois, which is going to be fun. All right, so I'm going to move on to the next side here. Actually, before I do that, no. Let's rock it as it is. Okay. Let's go check our Dynamesh. Of course, that's off. There's no need for it to be 500. Just gonna smooth that down a little bit. sometimes whenever you're working with something, it's hard to make up your mind, like where, like what to do. Like I've got this shape, and it's just like I don't like it. Um, I know it needs to be there. I just it's like what in the world do I do with this piece? So sometimes you just have to take action, move it around, do something with it. And the reason why is sometimes just by doing that, it'll introduce things that you wouldn't have thought of. Sometimes it doesn't get any better. So, but don't be afraid to just try stuff. And there's always going to be things like there is a point where you just got to like move on. Um, you're always going to be your own worst critic. Remember that. So, yes, thank you, Shopify. Okay. Here's some thunder out there. All right. Okay. Now we're going to move on to this side. And I really want to accentuate the way this hair is bunching up right here. Not like super unrealistically, but I want it to flow nicely. Something I have to keep in mind is that this is going to be 3D printed, and there are some things that I don't want it to have a bunch of undercuts, like right there, or that clavicle. I want to try and avoid that, so I want to make sure that I'm thinking about that whenever I'm working on it. These are all things that like take time to understand how all this stuff plays together. Like if you're making something that's going to be manufactured, well, you have to make it in such a way that it can be manufactured. 3D printing offers some great opportunities, especially with resin and SLA printing. But there are still things that have to be taken into account. Like if I was gonna make this into like, I have a couple ideas, right? I think that I'm gonna take this whenever I'm done, and I'm going to make a series of them that are, full figured. And then I'm also going to take the same sculpture, and I'm probably going to offer it as a bust, right? Even so, I'm not going to 3D print every single one. That's just not practical to do. If you're doing miniature, even if you're doing miniatures, actually, like if you were doing minis, you would still want to make a mold. Um, and you have to have that in mind as you're going through and developing things. If you've ever gone down this road with printing, you'll know what I'm talking about. And it's you don't know what you don't know. I didn't know what I didn't know whenever I first started this stuff. I mean, heck, at work we carved things out on a giant milling machine and 1 pound foam, and it ultimately gets covered up by almost a quarter inch of material after it's been carved in foam before it gets painted. So like I could go, the temptation is to go through and put tons of detail into things on things I do for work, but at the end of the day, those details get wiped out through the manufacturing process. So it's kind of, you have to think about those things. So for me, going into what I do now professionally, it was a little bit difficult to, or I had to restrain myself from going to town and trying to put tons of detail into things that just weren't going to show up anyway. So you just need to know your process is effectively what I'm trying to say. And if all this ever was is something that was going to be produced visually, well then that would have its own process, right? Okay. Trying to decide, do I want to turn on Sculptris Pro? Go snake hook. Nice thing about Sculptris Pro is that it tessellates everything. See how it's automatically updating everything. So that way I don't have to go through and Dynamesh, remesh, and all that stuff. Again, remember, undercuts. No undercuts. Don't want them. No thank you. Thank you, ZBrush. This portion is pretty lengthy, but it's worth it if you just sit back, take your time, just focus on trying to make it happen one step at a time. Freaking commercials. See, we're almost at the point where we can move on to our next step, but sorry about that. I'm going to use a pinch brush, try to bring this down to a point. It's okay if this doesn't look great. We're mostly going to be using these shapes as a reference point for the next step that we've got. So okay. Just always be moving around the model. I mean, you don't have to do it like you're like, don't just be like moving around and be like, go, what's over here, over here, over here. Move purposefully. Like when you make a change on one side, have a look around and see how it affects it as you turn the model, because you can't obviously see all around the model as you're working, and sometimes it might look okay on one end, then as you turn it, it's like, ugh, no thank you. All right. Okay. So now I'm going to come back over to my clay buildup. Just kind of try to dial some of this stuff in. all of these are supposed to be coming down to a point here. Right? And then from here, it should be just tapering down like so. Okay. All right. I think it's mostly where I want it to be at this point. Right here is not, I'm not crazy about. Let's see. Move that. Good. Okay. Now, before I go too far, I do want to take each of these pieces here and I'm going to merge them into one tool. I think. You know what? Maybe I'm going to hold off on that for now. I'm going to hold off because I don't want to accidentally end up dynameshing them together. But what we are going to do is we're going to save our tool. And what we're going to do right now is we're going to build some hair clumps. I did this on the previous version or the previous session, but I went a little bit of a different route, and I liked the way that the guy over at 3D Mutiny did it. And so we're going to try that out because it's more like working with clay. So we're going to come down here and we're going to append just a cylinder right here. Okay. And we're just going to work with it as is. We're going to subdivide it a few times. And then we're going to use our tools to kind of carve in. I'm going to turn off Sculptors Pro. We don't need that. It doesn't have to be anything pretty. Probably even bump up the intensity. Might be a little too much. I do want it to read though. All right. Maybe a little bit of clay buildup. Smooth that out a little bit. There's a million other ways you could have done this, but this works just fine. I like it because it's more organic, and that works for me. Okay, so now we have this. Actually, let me go back over this one more time. Adjust my lazy radius. Okay. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to use our gizmo, and I'm going to stretch this out a bit. Now, I'm going to try to be non-destructive with it, so I'm going to duplicate it at this point and work on the duplicate as much as I can. And so what we're going to do is we're going to use a twist modifier. So I'm going to click and drag this upward. I'm holding Alt on the keyboard, by the way. And then now we're going to click on this little cog wheel, and we're going to use this twist modifier. Well, it's made of multiple subdivisions. Go figure. So what we'll do is we'll say geometry, delete lower. Now we are working with 31,000 points. It'll be all right. All right. So if you have multiple subdivisions, you can't utilize this. But we are just going to do a little bit of a twist here. You can go even further if you wanted to. And then, let's see, there's some other options. So we can taper this. So Okay. You can always go back to your 3D gizmo, then utilize it like that. So now we basically got like a clump of hair, okay? And we can do a few things. We can either just work with this as it is, or we could say duplicate it over and keep working with it like this. But we're not gonna go that route yet. Okay, so like I said, non-destructive. So whenever I make a major change, I'm going to duplicate. I'm gonna turn off solo. Now this thing is ginormous. So let's bring it down to scale. And what we're going to do is effectively we're going to take this and we're going to plug it in here. Now, I can flatten it out if I wanted to, but we're not going to do that. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use my, let's see, I think it's a bend curve. All right. So see, I'm taking this outer cone and I'm adding movable points, right? And I'm doing this kind of as a trying to basically take this shape and move it along here, and I want to try and match effectively the shape of that larger hair clump that I had originally made, right? And it's okay if it doesn't look right. We're gonna fix that. I mean, you gotta treat it like it's clay. I could add more dots in there. And it'll give me a little more fidelity. And it's either you do this or you sit there and you sculpt all that detail in there. But we're going to use this to kind of help ourselves out a little bit. So this is not a fast process by any means. So if you're not patient, and trust me, I'm not always the most patient. Sculpture may not be your thing. Thank you, ZBrush, for always being willing to save. Okay. So let's try and follow this as closely as we can, since we went through all the trouble to do all that sculpting. And we can end up smashing this stuff in later. Okay, now where's my cogwheel? right there. I'm going to go to my gizmo. Gizmo, control, click and drag. So and the same thing, I'm going to go back over to bend curve. Maybe not. I didn't realize it was going to lose that information. That's okay, because now I can go over, I can use my move brush, right, and kind of do the same thing. Always remember you got your smoothing options. And we'll go back here in a minute and mush all this stuff back into place. And that's pretty thick hair, but it will look nice once we get it all dialed in. And they can be a little bit stylized. Okay, we're gonna come back over this with a hairbrush that I have with an alpha that will help a lot of this out. Okay. Really want to distinguish this spot right here. Try and blend it in there. Okay. Smooth out those points. Now come back here. Basically anything that's standing out from the original, I'm going to just tuck back in. And that's not too bad. And then what we can do once we're here is I've got a couple of these hair rakes, right? And I can come over the surface here And we can sculpt some further detail, right? So let's have a look at our stroke palette. Change your lazy radius. Maybe drop the intensity a little bit so it's not so harsh. Maybe we do need to bring it up. There we go. Tell you what, working on a Cintiq has spoiled me. That's okay. Maybe drop the radius a little bit. There we go. So you can see what I'm trying to do here, right? So basically, we're going to go through with the rest of these pieces and just rinse and repeat, basically. Add some detail. I've got like the steadiest hands. Let's see. Let's bring up the size a little bit. That might help too. And if something doesn't turn out right, erase it. Nothing wrong with that. Fortunately, that doesn't work with everything in life. But, you know, I say unfortunately, sometimes it is fortunate. You gotta learn from our mistakes, you know. All right. Okay. Nope. Sometimes you just start doing things and you should know better. All right. Okay, we'll refine these spots later. I'm not going to get in the weeds on that right now. But what I am going to do, because I have them both on the same subtool, I can move them both together, which is perfect. So now I can move them in unison as if they were actually affecting one another, you know? Like hair ought to. Okay, now I'll go back to my move topological, which is BMT on the keyboard, so I can affect just that one poly group. That's why it's important to break things up into poly groups so that you can quickly make adjustments. These two can be on the same subtool without destroying one another. Now there's something interesting happening there. You see that geometry, how it's like crashing on itself? The reason that's happening is because I still probably have... No, I don't have back face masking on. Why is that happening? Oh, it's a move topological brush, right? So it's considering the topology going on. So if you run into something like that, it's like, okay, well, what do I do? What I can do is just simply mask and use a regular remove brush. Problem solved. See? These are all things that simply take time and exposure to the program to really get a grip on. I've been using this program for, what, 10 years now? And I'm still learning it. I'm still on 2022. It's basically a dinosaur compared to what's out there now. I know there's some cool new features that Maxon added, but I'm fine with where I'm at right now. I might upgrade at some point, but ain't happening today. Adams Fisk approach. I'll have to check that out. Let's see. Adam Fisher. Okay. Adam Fisher. Oh, yeah. I'm looking at one of his videos real quick. Turn down the volume right. I remember when I was learning ZBrush, I would sit here and I would watch these time lapses over and over and over again, trying to figure out like what tools and things people were learning or using. Where are we at? Let's see if I can back this up. We can watch this together. Let me pull this up on the screen here. All right. Hey, I appreciate that. Brute, yeah. Yeah, that's right on. Actually, that's really good. I like how he's doing this beard. Okay. It's just keeping it as little thin clumps of hair. Let's see. Oh yeah. Perfect. Yep. Love that detail. Yep. Yep, that's where we're trying to get to. All right. I appreciate that ton. All right. So getting back to where we were. Close down this palette, that palette. All right. So again, we're going to duplicate this. Work on the duplicate. Scale this down. Perhaps I should have duplicated after I scaled it. That's okay. Now, if we wanted to mimic what he was doing in that other one, we could thin this out a little bit. Like so. Then bring this over. And we can widen this up. Then like before, we're going to go cogwheel, bin deformer. And then we'll just kind of move these pieces into place. Just like that. Come on. I'm going to take a step back. So remember that less is more sometimes. And then we can bump that up whenever we need to. Okay. Now I want to dial it up a little bit just so I can move this around, and then we'll follow it up with the move brush. switch gears a little bit. Still working on hair, but we'll work on the beard. So it will be beneficial to break this up into a few different clumps just to help us out. I mean, this is how you would construct something in clay anyway. You would build off little chunks and then apply them to the surface. We're kind of working a little bit backwards, but that's okay. So I'm gonna mask that, and then we're gonna go like we did a session or two ago. We're just gonna go to split. Might help if deleted lower. There we go. We're gonna go subtool split masked points, and then we're going to do a quick Dynamesh. Maybe not so low on the resolution. Better. And I'll do the same thing here. Turn on symmetry. Subtool, split mask points, remesh. Okay. And then I guess we'll also split out this little goatee. It might wind up being a little thin whenever we remesh, but we'll see. Then I think I might break this up just a little bit. So let's turn off symmetry. I want there to be some irregularity. Split mask points, remesh. All right. So now, let's see what happens. Oh no. Okay. Let's work on the lower portions first. We'll go from bottom to top. Really appreciate that suggestion, Benjamin. It's funny because you can be working in this like it's always interesting seeing how somebody else works because they'll do something and it's like, oh yeah, duh, why didn't I do that? You know, I have that happen so many freaking times. It's not even funny. But that's just the way it is. Like when you're working in this, like especially whenever I started learning ZBrush, was back around 2012 ish. I mean, YouTube was around. It was around for sure, but uh, things weren't as prolific as they are nowadays. And there weren't a ton of resources outside of stuff that you could find in books. Like I have a book written by Paul Gabry from I think ZBrush 4R4. I think so. That's been a minute. I mean, Z Modeler wasn't even around at that time. So, yeah, good stuff. When you see people like Paul or Joseph Drust or Ryan Kingsley and the way that they work, they they're so embedded in this software. Like they know things. Uh, they reference things that only become second nature by practice, and super cool that they share their knowledge. It's one of the things I absolutely hated whenever I was trying to learn this stuff was you go online and try to find some kind of resource, and there'd be some guy with a demonstration, but all they were doing was just like wiggling a mouse around and hoping that they got your attention. And who knows, you know, I mean, at least they were trying to do something right, but it's like, well, that's not the most helpful, but somehow I managed. Let's bump up our resolution a bit. And anyone can learn this stuff. I mean, it's just a matter of doing it. People like Rick Baker can take time and learn it whenever he did, then there's no reason anyone else can't. All right, let's do this side. Yeah, I think 4 or 5 is what I started with. It's uh, it's it's part of the reason why I haven't upgraded to what uh, the current version of ZBrush, because honestly, most of them are just iterations off the previous version, and not much of the workflow has really changed enough for me to be able to justify um, upgrading. I have seen the stuff that they've developed for I guess a mobile application or whatnot. I bought Nomad a little while ago, and that was pretty cool. Um, it's one of those things, like, you get used to working in a certain environment. Like at work, I have to bounce through AutoCAD, Rhino, sometimes SolidWorks, 3ds Max, occasionally Blender, ZBrush pretty regularly, and then Substance Painter, Sampler, Stager, InDesign, Illustrator, and all the other stuff. Typical 3D generalist uh, stuff. And it's, if I don't have to learn a new software, I would like not to. Um, the thing with the mobile ones is, one, admittedly, I haven't spent enough time with them, so I have to. I'll have to limit my commentary on it somewhat. But the things that I like to be able to do inside of ZBrush, and that I've gotten used to workflows that are just second nature, um, obviously don't come as second nature in a new software package, which obviously you got to spend some time work on it and everything like that. But um, I don't see the point in upgrading if I don't need to. I knew it was going to come at some point, with the subscription thing. I mean, that's just the way that the industry is going. It's I, for on one hand, I can't blame them, because people pirate the crap out of anything that they can, so they got to be able to make their money. I get it, but I feel like if you're going to ask me to pay for a yearly subscription to something that used to be perpetual, you're really going to have to give me something worth jumping off into that. Like, it's not like Adobe, where, I mean, I guess with Adobe, it didn't really have much of a choice. But I ran with Adobe CC forever until just couldn't do it no more. I don't like dropping the money on it, but it's a business expense anyway. So, all right, we're gonna work our way up here. That didn't do too bad. chop this off. Whoops. Benjamin, you do any 3D printing? Oh, cool. Like props and stuff, like Roman, like Roman helmets or whatever. Oh, cool. Yeah, drop your link in here and I'll go check it out. Oh, dude, this is badass. Oh, wow. That samurai. Very cool. If you don't mind, I'm going to show your art station here. How cool is that? Wow. I like that eagle. I really like how you manage those feathers. Super cool. Very nice. Well, thanks for sharing that, Benjamin. That's super cool to see other people's work. Super cool. I've got a few things. This is a piece I've worked on um, for. I worked on this sculpted piece, not super detailed, obviously. There's a thing they do out here. I believe they're still doing it. It's called Brushes with Cancer, and they pair up artists with cancer survivors and kind of talk through their stories and everything. And they come up with an art piece. And I worked with a guy named Brian Coons and his wife. They're both photographers, and helped them to come up with this piece. And they wanted to do something that was mixed media. They weren't sure whether or not they wanted to like print the book or how they wanted to do it. But the obvious story is that this person went through hell and they're walking on to the next chapter of their life. This was featured in an article, cover feature in an article for uh, the New York Times, which is super cool. Never thought that in a million years that I would ever have any work that would be published anywhere. This actually is a piece that I worked on an installation for the Texas Department of Public Safety when I was working for Deep in the Heart Art Foundry, which is now called Pyrology. It was actually produced. They just finished doing the installation recently. I'm going to get up there and take some photographs at some point. My former boss, Clint Howard, he sculpted the centerpiece, and then a handful of other people sculpted some pieces around the perimeter. But the general layout and everything I developed forever ago in Fusion 360, and it's right there in Austin, off of Lamar Boulevard, right outside the Texas DPS training facility where they make all the where they train all the state troopers. Um, some other pieces that I've worked on. I'm probably gonna print this at some point. Probably go back and redo the hair, make it look a little nicer. Marty McFly It's based on a concept that Matt Thorpe came up with. Just a handful of other things. Anyway, enough about me. I'm going to keep working on this. What time we got? Got about another 20 minutes, and then I got to hop out of here. Appreciate y'all hanging out. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for hanging out. Time flies, I guess. Appreciate the recommendations from our friend Benjamin Marcelette. It's French, so it may be Marcelet, or maybe I'm botching it. I hope I'm not. I do apologize. But I really appreciate anything that can help me grow as an artist or help anyone else grow as an artist is much appreciated. No need to be precious about any of this stuff. We all start somewhere, and the goal of this channel is just to share knowledge and hang out and hopefully help other people get better at what they do, or maybe inspire somebody to step out and start trying to do their own artwork, because we all got to start somewhere. And on that note, well, I got to get out of here. So I hope you guys have a good rest of your weekend. Maybe I'll be on here later, maybe not. We'll see how I feel. Take care, everyone. God bless.